Batman the Joker Warzone issue 1 by various, because there's multiple stories by multiple writers and artists. I'm not even going to bother trying. This is, I mean, I'm looking forward to talking about one of them in particular, but we'll do it in order. We'll do it in order.
It's so overall impressions, though. I think we can kind of just talk about that quickly before we talk about individual stories.
I mostly like this. Yeah. So
I think my biggest complaint is very few of them feel like complete stories. They all feel like prologue teasers for things that are coming in 2021, and I'm like, that's great, but some of these could have just been like, occasionally they release those free like teaser 0-issue things on Comixology, just like here's like 10 pages of a free thing. Like most of them kind of feel like that, even though I quite enjoy them as a whole.
I mean, they could have done that, but like, I have no problem with them saying, "Hey, we've got a book that teases a bunch of Bat Family stuff for the next year. So here's a collection of teasers." Like, I have no problem with that,
and I like all of the things it's teasing. I just don't think any of these are a satisfying short story in their own right, or maybe one or two of them, but not many of them.
I think there's two of them I think really fit. The other ones, I think those are the two that almost tie in. Well, one of them ties into Joker War more than the other one. The other one's a really good tease for something coming up, but then the rest of them, I like that. I'm excited for what's going on with Batman, which I usually don't. Yeah. Although then again, this is not a lot of Batman. This is side characters that I happen to enjoy.
I have no problem with this being teases for stuff coming in 2021. Yeah. Obviously, the first stories get the Gillen March art, which obviously isn't great.
But I love the story, and I hate Titan for this.
No, I do too. Basically, this story is Joker taunting Bane, who's like strapped up to this anti-venom machine.
Yeah, it's basically a dialysis machine for Venom.
Yeah, to keep him weak enough.
When he put the mask on Bane, I was like, "Oh, you disrespectful shit."
Yeah. So what this is basically the idea that, well, two things. One, Joker taunting him that, hey, you took over the city. So this actually keeps King's Run in mind in continuity and refers back to it a lot. But the big thing he does is that he basically says, you wasted the biggest thing any of us could have done. Now, what's funny about this, of course, is that was actually less Bane and more, the Flashpoint Batman that did this. But obviously, I don't imagine that's general knowledge for a lot of the villains in Gotham.
Right, but Joker knows. But because he brings up that imposter Batman.
I don't know if he knows how much the imposter Batman, as he puts it, was kind of behind everything.
Yeah, because he's clearly blaming Bane for the kill itself. So I think he doesn't know that it was. I don't think he knows that Flashpoint Batman was the mastermind who was pulling the strings, if you will.
Okay.
But the big thing here, though, is like, no, that butler was like the one last thing, like to make Batman feel what he felt as a kid. The idea that you could, kill him is the ultimate, pull of the trigger to really mess with them. It's the biggest, most cataclysmic thing you could do to that person. And you wasted it with him not even being there to see it.
You wasted it on his kid.
On a Robin. You didn't you're not Bane who broke the bat. You've turned into Bane who broke the little bird. Like, that's who you are. And
him talking down to Bane is one of my favorite things, because it fits in with the Harley Quinn TV show continuity.
It does.
But I love it ends with him walking away through the mist of the why Bane still has mist in it is another question, but whatever. I'll give it creative license. And Bane's just left there, essentially quietly contemplating the fact that the Joker has just belittled him so much. And it's like, Bane's got something to prove. Like, in 2021, Bane might come swinging because he wants to prove that he's still the big bad Bane.
I hope he breaks the clown. That's what I'm hoping for.
What I want is a Bane story at last for the first time in years where it's not ultimately, someone else was the big bad.
Right. Well,
I want Bane trying to prove himself.
Yeah, that's why I always liked Bane. And again, that falls into my type of that villain that could be the hero with a couple turns. That's what I did like in King's Run, that him and Bruce are so similar. They're both built up from tragedy, but the way they went about it was so different. And that I'm kind of rooting for Bane to have a hand in defeating Joker. Yeah, I know it's not going to happen, but
one of the things here that's really old school that Tynion, who wrote this story, I should have mentioned, chose to do is that the narration at the start and the end, it's not the usual first person narration from Bane. it's actually third person, so it's a very old school villain sounding. And this is funny because later on for the Patreon book, I'm going to do issue 1 of Grant Morrison's Animal Man, which is an example of this. So I actually just read something with this in it today, but it's very old school. If you go back to stuff from the 80s and early 90s, there's a lot of third person narration for villains. The idea that we don't get to hear what they're thinking, we hear kind of this ominous third presence describing what they're thinking. And the box here that I think is really good right at the end is he's talking about the guards walking by and them being scared but not of him, and the exact panel that I love is he hears the word clown and part of him wants to scream, but instead he waits. Like, I'm like, damn, that gets me psyched for, like, you know, like, what's he going to be like when he gets out of there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I love it. Obviously Gilliam March's art is bleh, but
yeah.
And I hate that this means that this story that we're teasing here is probably going to be the Gilliam March story, right?
Yeah, very possible, yeah.
It tempers my excitement a tad, even though I think the core concept and the story idea has me very excited for it. It absolutely does. But just the fact that I go, this is probably going to be a March story, just makes me go, just a little bit.
That said, he draws the ghastliness of Bane hooked to that machine really well. You know,
honestly, Bane's physique's one of the things that Gilliam March might actually be quite good at.
It's because Bane is one of those few characters you can go stupidly 90s overboard with and no one will question.
Yeah, so that's tease number 1 for 2021. I would say it's successful in what it's teasing. The second,
I also think that's one of the more well-rounded stories.
Sure.
That has a point to it.
Sure. Well, they all have a point. It's just that you don't like that they're not a point on their of themselves.
A point beyond the tease, a point of as a story in their own little right.
Because the next story is teasing the John Ridley Batman story it's called. Because John Ridley wrote this, Oliver Couple on the art. And this is him kind of recuperating from the attack from Punchline. And I think what this told me more than anything else is not only that obviously Luke Fox being like a Batman type character is going to be a big deal, but also that we're really going to get their family as a whole, because we get introduced to a lot of characters here in their family.
Vaguely met most of them before.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I say introduced. I don't mean it's the first time I've seen them. I just mean that it's, you know, in terms of like this story and this run that we're going to have, this is clearly the introduction to this family unit and how they all interact with each other. You know, hearing the others, seeing the injury even on Tamara, you know, their mangled fingers from an attack. Like, you know, this stuff is pretty. You know, it gives it a different sense, and we have this attack where a bunch of Joker henchmen show up because they want the drive with the money from Catwoman that Fox got in the. Was that in Catwoman 25 or was that in?
It was.
Yeah.
It was in Catwoman 25. Yeah.
And there was an editor's note to tell you about that as well.
There was an editor's note, but I was trying to remember if it was accurately in that book itself or if it was in the.
It was
the other thing. Yeah. Okay.
I think that was the end of the main story of that book.
That sounds right. But yeah, so obviously Lucas Fox armors up, you know, was all Batwing.
I missed Batwing.
Do you know what? It occurred to me, you know, when the gauntlet comes out, because that's what you see first. I was like, holy shit, I don't think I've seen Batwing since Tynan's detective run ended.
No.
Like, I genuinely don't think I've seen him in a single book.
No, he's kind of just disappeared. He's gone to the back.
Like, we've seen Luke Fox here or there, like occasionally. Like, I mean, as recently as Catwoman, obviously. But, you know, I think I've seen him a couple of times maybe in Batman here or there. But Batwing, I don't recall seeing at all in like 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time. You know, it made him feel like a cool presence here, and it made me excited the idea that we're going to get a run that might actually establish him as a character that many of us really grow to care about, because I don't know if that's really been there. And I know some people read like the New 52 Batwing series. I never did. It didn't seem that interesting at the time.
I did. It was okay.
It was fine. You know, it could have been literally any other hero. It didn't have to be tied to Batman. It could have been a solo story and it still would have worked.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm loving the idea that this may really establish him as a proper legacy character that we we then think of as one of the main characters who could take over for Batman someday.
I think it's pretty telling that we had him as a main character in the Bat family in Detective Comics for what, 2.5 years, whatever that was, and we just haven't seen him since. No one picked up on it. No one was like, "Oh, well, we should have Batwing around." There was just nothing.
And that kind of, if generations had gone through and he's the current Batman, then I feel like that was the play, right? Like, because no one's doing anything with him. Why not? But here it feels like there's definitely the Fox family is taking a new precedent, which is cool.
Yeah. So police show up though, because there's a moment here where Lucius has a gun aimed at his son in the suit, and I think the implication here is that the effect of the Joker gas that he received is still playing with his mind
on him,
because he's wearing sunglasses all issue, the hood up to cover it. But we do see him at the start, and there is a bit of a mad glint. His lips are a little bit red, like just a hint of a grin. I do actually think Coipel's the artist on this. I think Coipel is fantastic as a rule. I do think his Lucius looks a little bit young.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. Yeah,
but that's my only real critique with the art here. I think everything else looks great. I just think Lucius looks a little bit young at times.
Yeah, it doesn't help as well that his son's much taller than him. So
it makes sense that Luke's a big imposing figure. I think he comes from a sports background. I'm sure is part of his backstory. It makes sense that he's built that way, and Lucius is a smaller man. That's fine.
Well, yeah,
he
but
doesn't look as old as he's traditionally portrayed.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that because he looks younger and now he looks smaller than his son, he feels more like a little brother than he does his father. Is the point I'm making?
Yeah.
Obviously, lots of people grow up to be taller than their parents. That's really not what I'm arguing against here.
Not me.
Well, I'm sorry. I apologize to all the short arses of the world who felt triggered by that comment.
That's all you should. Apology not accepted.
You can only go on the ride if you're yay big man, okay?
Hey, I haven't had that problem since like 6th grade. It's fine.
Yeah, but you stopped growing at 6th grade. Most people, most people keep going for a bit.
Hey, I'm only 5'6". Come on now. I'm not that short. Like I'm short, but not that
like
short.
5'8", 5'9". I'm around the cusp between them.
Yeah, so
which is about average. For here,
trying to see about Luke Fox. Oh boy. Also in Batgirl 45, Luke Fox began a romantic relationship with Barbara Gordon.
Okay, if you're just listening to this review, you didn't listen to our Three Jokers review, I recommend going back and get the context for why we're laughing at that. I'm
just trying to see what his history is, and it doesn't, it just gives his, character history, not in the comics, but yeah, I'm sure he was a standout athlete at some point.
Yeah, I feel like he was he's got the quarterback figure, hasn't he? That they
I mean, basketball, he could have played any sport, the size he is.
That's true.
Yeah.
Rick Shithouse.
So just to bring us back to the issue, though, we have a big kind of, a big social commentary moment where the police show up, which Luke called them, and there's a standoff because Lucius is holding this gun, and the guy's ready to fire, and he's yelling that he's going to fire at him, and it's just, it's when they run out, and Luke says, "I'm the one who called you," and they kind of de-escalate the situation. But it's hard not to see the political current climate in these pages. This police officer, threatening to shoot Lucius. It's this there on the page. So, it's clearly setting up that we're going to have the family dynamic. It's clearly setting up that we're going to have these supporting characters be big facets of the story. And I think also the idea that politics are going to come into it. It's not going to shy away from these things. Not that I'm surprised at that from John Ridley. By no means.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But
yeah, it's to be expected, right?
Yeah. So, I would agree that this is probably one of the weaker ones, only in the sense that it doesn't do much as a story on its own compared to some of the others. But it's made me excited for the run, though. I'm looking forward to the story. I'm excited to be excited about Batwing, I suppose. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I always liked him, and I didn't know if that was just Tynan, right? But him almost as the Tony Stark analog who had all of this, the technology doing the heavy lifting for him. And he's kind of cocky, and it really fit in with the Bat family really well.
Well, I think that was the thing that stuck out to me here is his big moment here where the gauntlet comes up and then you turn the page and he's in full armor. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if he ever quite got moments like that in that detective run where, I liked him well enough, but that's made him feel like a big deal. That's made him feel like a star.
Yeah, and the Iron Man comparison is apt. I think that's kind of always been the intention, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously people compare Batman and Iron Man anyway, just, okay, no powers, rich, buy the suit, and everything.
Yeah.
But this is even more direct in that. No, it's the mechanicalized suit.
Yeah. So real quick, I just found his history. He was a mixed martial artist before.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah. So
that's
and
cool.
that fits,
counts.
right, but that also fits in with him joining the Bat family and being able to take care of himself. It's not just sports. It's he's a combatant. So and he apparently went to MIT.
Now, speaking of combatants, Henchmaster, going to the next story.
Oh.
Henchmaster, this is it. Even before we get to what this story is actually about and the characters that obviously I want to talk about, the idea that there's someone out there who will take in people who want to become a henchman and train them in the different ways that different supervillains in Gotham would want henchmen. So I'll train you to be a Riddler henchman or a Penguin henchman or a Joker henchman. That's hilarious to me.
I don't want to bust your bubble, but that's Taskmaster over in Marvel.
Yeah, but that's Marvel. I don't know about Marvel.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Okay. I'm just telling you that this is. I feel like this is what this character was. I don't want to say ripping off, but paying homage to.
But in that, not visually at least, though.
No.
Yeah. Oh no, he's a big bulky dude with red gloves. He looks like a Street Fighter character.
He does.
He does.
But yeah.
It looks like him and Zangief would go for a sandwich together or something. I don't know. But in a bite comes Cass and Steph, Spoiler and Orphan, and we get a little flashback explaining why they're here. I think Williamson, who wrote this story, gets to the dialogue here where Steph is a motor mouth and then Cass will just respond with a quick sentence or a quick couple of words here or there. It really gets the vibe from them. But their whole idea is that they want to give the city hope. So this is the middle of the Joker War, and they want to get the signal. But the main signal on top of the station has been destroyed. So they want to get a signal and light in the sky. And Steph's like, oh, well, my dad had one in storage. There's all these villains over there. We can go get it. So it's them getting this, and the story ends with, after some fighting with the Henchmaster and all that, is they're in the clock tower, and they're talking about how the symbol's important, right? Because that's what the story ends up being called. It's called the symbol. And we find out the final page is revealing that they have modified their outfits to carry that idea that the symbol is important. So Cass is basically, with a couple of slight modifications, just in her Batgirl outfit. Steph is in kind of a hybrid of the Spoiler suit and her Batgirl suit.
It's mostly the Spoiler suit, just with a Bat logo slapped on it.
Yeah.
No, because the stuff in the inside of the torso.
She has the hood. This is very reminiscent of what she was wearing in Detective, with the hood and the bottom part of the mask, so you can see her blonde hair.
Yeah. The head's very Spoiler, but I'd say the suit's more Batgirl than it is Spoiler.
No, it is.
Yeah, because you've got the bumpy kind of sides going down the suit. The yellow highlights are missing, but it's definitely very Batgirl with a Spoiler sort of head on, if you will. Which this is super exciting to me, honestly. Of course I love this. Why wouldn't I love this?
I got there and go, I'm going to be able to hear Pete be excited when he gets to that last page.
Oh, it's a glorious visual. Oh, it's very cartoony art. David Lafiente is the artist on this. And I will happily take a Steph and Cass book with this team. Give it to me. I'll read it.
I don't love the art in this, if I'm honest. I think it's
I don't either, but it fits. It's a little bit lighter, compared to some of the other stuff that are in this book.
I really like the colors. I will say that. I love the way the colors pop.
I mean, that's sci-fi.
Yeah. But I don't know. Some of the art, I think it's a little bit over exaggerated for me in this story, and maybe it's part of maybe in like a standalone hypothetical Batgirls book this wouldn't bother me as much, and maybe it's just in amongst all the other art in this issue it sticks out as being the very different one, and that's why it's bothering me a bit. But I didn't love it here.
It's not typically my thing, but it fits Williamson's style here. Everything's kind of cartoony, even Henchmaster. Like I don't want to imagine what Gilliam March does to the script. You know what I mean?
Sure. So, I think the art suits the personalities of the characters, and it should be a more bubbly book. And I'm hoping that this costume change will be reflected when we see them next in Batman, maybe 100 even soon. Yeah, that this is something that they've thought out and they know is coming.
I will say, just on the costumes themselves, and again, I don't know if this is just this particular artist's rendition. I'm not massively keen on Cass's goggles.
Sure. I mean, I like them well enough, but sure.
I think it's fine compared to the usual just black nothing.
No, they just look a little bit bulky and off to me. But I mean, I'm nitpicking here because it's a new suit. That's what we do with new suits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's really the only change from a classic suit when you really think of it. I mean, unless I got an image up and started comparing tiny details. I mean,
there's probably. I felt like there was a touch more color, like a touch more on the cape, maybe before, like a trim somewhere. But I could be just misremembering.
Yeah.
No. It's pretty close, and it is just the goggles that feel a bit bulky to me. But I mean, it's not bad. I don't hate it.
Well, I love this, so I don't care what Connor thinks.
You never care what I think, whether you love it or hate it.
That's true.
It's just, pointless sentiment.
Yes. Okay. Well, I guess I'm saying that to shut you up, so I could just say once again, I love this, and we can move on with the lives because we got Batgirl, Cass, and Batgirl Steph in their outfits, and they don't have to be called Batgirls necessarily. I'm okay. I mean, if they want to still be called Spoiler and Orphan, whatever. Like, Orphan's still kind of a weird name, admittedly, but whatever.
Her dressed as a Batgirl, though, like, it's hard for just, like...
It's weird, because you could go down the path of, okay, Babs is retiring being Batgirl, if that was the story they wanted to take for whatever reason. And then, but who do you choose to be Batgirl out of these two? Who gets to pick,
Both. Why not both?
No problem. I don't know. Spoiler still works. I feel like Cass can wear the mantle.
I don't even mean from an external perspective, DC marketing perspective. I mean, how do the characters decide, well, I get to be Batgirl? And I think having two Batgirls at the same time is confusing. There's a reason there's usually not more than one Robin at the same time.
Why is this a debate now when every single time I've talked about how there can be three Batgirls at once, this has never came up before?
I mean, I'm sure
I've you like something, before, but... Pete, and he's got to crush it for you.
Yeah, he has to try.
No, and whenever we've talked about the three Batgirls before, we've meant in spirit. I didn't realize you literally meant all three would be Batgirl at the same time.
I wasn't fussed if they were or they weren't, but I totally think they can be. I don't think it's a problem at all. But I mean,
all I know is I'll take Cass being Batgirl over Black Bat. I always thought that was a lame name.
Oh, sure.
There was Red Robin.
That's just going in such a weird way. I was ready to move on, but Carter's making this a weird debate about like who gets the mantle. I don't even think
like you can't have them all Batgirl if they're in the field and you're on the comms.
Forget that for a minute, right? Who even says Babs is high up the cape? Like, this is not about passing the mantle. This is about both of them reclaiming the idea of the symbol and using it, and like, doesn't matter.
I just meant hypothetically. It was a hypothetical question about the name, not the symbol.
I hope they're all called Batgirl just to annoy Connor. I honestly, at this point, I will take that.
Batgirl A, B, and C.
Oh my god, it's not that confusing. It really isn't.
I'm more upset that there's a Cass and a Cassie over in Young Justice. That's more like those two characters came out around the same time.
That is confusing as well. I'll grant you that.
No, that's so confusing. It's just like, come on, guys. Like imagine that Roy Harper was also a Richard Harper, and then you had Dick and Rick running around. Like, you have Cass and Cassie. Like, come on.
All right. We have to move on, though, to the worst story in the book. So let's talk about...
Oh, how dare you!
Let's talk about the Poison Ivy story.
I feel like that was supposed to be aimed at annoying me a little bit after that last exchange, but
honestly, honestly, that was not about annoying anyone. I just genuinely don't like this one that much. But
what's wrong with you?
I loved it.
And I also don't get, because Poison Ivy like kills several people here, and I feel like after the last couple of years, the whole controversy of her killing a bunch of people and Batman.
Yeah. Okay, this is where I think me and Matt need to fill Pete in on some Poison Ivy history in the last couple of years. This is mainly from the Harley and Ivy book. There was and the aftermath of Heroes in Crisis. There's actually two Ivies right now. Ivy was kind of split in two essentially when she regrew.
Well, she reabsorbed her.
Yeah. So there was two. Where there was the good one, which was basically Harley's girlfriend, and then you had the one that was pure eco-terrorist. And they kind of melded, but it's still mainly the evil one, or back to roots sort of thing.
I had no idea there was two Poison Ivies running around.
No, because there's not now. So the whole point at the end.
No,
of Joker
I mean, at any point, though, Matt. I had no idea there was at any point there was
you
two.
didn't listen to when we were talking about it.
Of course not. Why would I listen to you two when you're talking about some book I don't read?
Yeah. So here, I do like here that the people she does kill are Joker, people. Right? It's part of the Joker War. I can go with that. She tries to teach a lesson. The whole Queen Ivy thing, I really get behind. But this is just like Connor said, and I know the pun was intended, but it is a return to her roots of, hey, this world's screwed up. I'm gonna try to fix it, and if that means killing a few humans or a dozen, then so be it. And I do like that this writer Sam Johns, which I thought was I was like, oh man, that's Jeff Johns under a pseudonym, right? It is not.
It's a pretty poor pseudonym if it was.
Yeah, right. But this is someone that Tynan is kind of like, how Snyder, brought him along. This is what Tynan's doing with Sam Johns, and because I had to look up to see what else they've worked on, and it's a lot of stuff with Tynan. And I feel they have a handle on Ivy, and what her wants and needs are going forward into 2021. A return to form, and her wearing a cool crown of thorns.
I like everything that's in this. Yeah, I like what we're doing with Ivy. I think I preferred good Ivy, so to speak, or Ivy with Harley is definitely peak Ivy. But I'm getting that in the Harley Quinn show, so I'm kind of satisfied there for the time being.
I feel there's still room for that because I feel like there is room for her to be like, okay, well, I hate all humans except for Harley.
I can't wait till we get back to the inevitable part of this story when it happens next year will be the encounter when Harley tries to talk her down and seeing that reaction. I'm looking forward to that.
And I feel I like this development more than that, that real, to me, I would say the biggest low point for me, at least in the King run, of that weird Ivy story that set her up to Crisis. But no, I like this here, her basically bringing vengeance, and
I think
stuff has to be burned down to regrow. That is Poison Ivy.
I didn't get a lot out of this. Partly because I was like, what the hell is this characterization? I didn't just because clearly I've just not been in the loop with Poison Ivy recently. But I felt this was like a much weaker version of the Bane story, and that it was essentially someone being like, okay, I need to go out and prove myself and go do,
I don't really feel that's fair.
Well, that's what it felt like to me, though. I'm saying what it felt like to me as I was reading it. And when it got to the end and it just said to be continued in 2021, I'm like, what did you give me there other than she's mad and she's coming? Like, there was nothing...
No, I will agree with that. That is my biggest complaint. This is kind of what I got at the start. A lot of these aren't really stories, they're setups. No. And this is one that I think is a good example of that. But I think the key difference between this and the Bane one, at least the way I've read it, is Bane, it's a very personal wanting to prove himself. It's like, I can be the big bad. Whereas Ivy is on a mission. It's not a personal thing that, I'm going to do the right, I'm going to prove myself to be the evil thing. It's, no, I'm going to, as she sees it, save the world.
I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing, but what you just described is why I like the Bane one more. It was more interesting to me because it was this personal thing. It was this thing to prove himself.
I think it comes down to how much you like Ivy. And if you're down with Ivy, and with me, it's always how is she a villain in 2020 as half the West Coast is on fire still. Australia was burning early in the year, and here she sells an anti-hero, but she's on the other edge of it. Whereas Harley's on that edge of, I want to be good, right? I'm trying to be the hero versus Ivy going, all right, you guys are messing things up. And she says it clear in here about, I tried giving the world paradise, and now the only choice I have left is to raise hell. She's like, I've tried to play nice, but they came in here, they burned Eden down, so now I have to do what I have to do. I liked it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I also know I'm a self-parody, and
I also really like Laura Braga's art. Have we seen Laura Braga on Ivy before? Because it feels really familiar. I don't know if she's...
I feel we have. Let me check, because I'm sure I've looked this up before.
I know I've read something with her art on somewhere, because it's too familiar not to, and I know the name. But but I couldn't tell you where, because it wasn't the Harley Ivy mini, because that was all.
No, that was Lou Pacino.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly where it was, but it feels familiar enough. Maybe it was in one of the other anthology things that we've had in the past. But enough that I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm down for this. I'd be down for, I don't know if this is just going to be a story in Batman or in another book, or if we've got a mini coming up or what. But I'm looking forward to the story at some point.
Did you read Cycles of Life and Death?
I did, yes.
Okay. So if we're going to get another mini that's akin to that, okay. I mean, then it doesn't take up Batman, Tynan. Although maybe this is with Sam Johns doing this, it makes me think it's something from Tynan because they are so close.
That would make sense, yeah.
But here we go, Laura Braga, DC.
Yeah. I actually did quite like that Cycle of Life and Death mini. I thought it was pretty solid. Well, and it set the stage for a lot of where we took Ivy for the next 5 years or so.
Well, yeah, and it really did play with her in having this motherhood to her that wasn't what we thought.
It kind of took the traditional Mother Earth role,
right,
and made it more literal, which was kind of fun. I did enjoy that, and I'd still recommend checking it out for anyone who's interested. Just be aware that the continuity of it is a good few years ago now.
But it's Clayman art, and it's not sketchy Clayman art that we kind of got in parts of Heroes in Crisis. It's really, really good, really well told. So, man, let's see forever. Okay, so Laura Braga from Bombshells.
That'll be it. And she's definitely drawn Ivy in Bombshells.
Ivy, and in Harley and Ivy Meet Betty and Veronica, which I read the first 2 issues of. And it was phenomenal.
She's no stranger to Ivy then.
Deceased, A Good Day to Die, #1. Wonder Woman 51. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. All over then. I like it.
For the love of God,
next story.
Let's get back to a good story, shall we?
Not this one.
No, this one's good. This is James Stokoe art with Tynan.
The art. I think the story is just kind of okay.
I mean, it's not really. I mean, this is unlike the other ones. This isn't so much of a setup as it is just like a little clown hunter story to show the effect he's having on the city, which I did kind of like about it. I liked that it was like Joker sending out a mob squad of clowns to take on the clown hunter. What was it? Snap, Crackle, Pop, and Big Ed, I think were the 4 characters. And basically the clown hunters like set a trap, and it felt like Judge Dredd meets Mad Max, and the art kind of but in the middle of Gotham, right? That's kind of the vibe I was getting from it.
Stokoe is something else, isn't he?
Yeah, Stokoe is a really specific art style. It really spoke to me, and I think made this story much better. So yes, despite Matt's reaction, I did think this was
I don't like the art.
Miles better than the Ivy story. Miles better.
No, I don't like Clown Hunter either. I think Clown Hunter is everything I don't like about Batman, and it's Red Hood adjacent. And I
like that that's the point. At least I'm assuming he's very much unsanctioned, right? And just he I think the point with Clown Hunter is he's misunderstood what Batman is, and I think that's probably going to be part of the story that we have next.
Oh,
I don't think so. I think he fully understands what Batman is, and he's taking the Red Hood track. But because he wasn't a Robin, he can get away with using a batarang to murder people. And I don't. Right. Well, I mean, the whole idea of Clown Hunter, I guess this was supposed to be his really first appearance. That you're supposed to get like shades of him in Batman, in the main book, and this. But then something happened. I think maybe with all the delays.
I think they're
I put it in his newsletter. It was just that the way people reacted to Punchline being introduced like an arc early, just in snippets, was so positive that he decided just to try that with Clown Hunter.
Yeah, I think I like how the mystique of Clown Hunter has been built up. We were just getting little signs of him. We've been hearing in Batman that he's pissing off Punchline, that they're losing people because there's someone out there hunting clowns. And then getting this story here that kind of shows him working in full swing, no pun intended. And we get like a little tease here that his parents presumably were murdered in a Joker attack of some kind, and that's why he's become who he is. But I enjoyed this story.
I think this story is a more complete story than the Ivy one. This is the second one that I felt like a proper, I had an actual point as a story. I think the art, I might like it a little bit better. It's kind of, they're so different, they're hard to compare. I love Stokoe's Gotham though. That first page is phenomenal. The detail he does. And of course,
the other
level.
Big detail here is that there's literally support for him on the streets. Like we see people in the apartments on the street cheering for him. because of what he's
what
doing.
I will say though is, I think I'm more excited for the follow up to the Ivy story than I am the follow up to this. So.
Yeah, well, this one felt less like a tease to me, even though I presume there'll be more of a Clown Hunter focused story after Joker War.
I think it's the next arc.
Yeah, I do think this is more about. This is the one that out of all the stories that felt more of a tie-in to the actual event to me, or the actual story, because this feels like, hey, here's a big part of the mythology and the context going on right now because of Joker War, which is going to lead into another story afterwards, of course.
But it's actually the Ivy one was kind of like that as well. Like, it was all to do with the, this was the follow up to what happened with Batman and Harley in Eden, right? With all that stuff in the last few issues.
Yeah, I guess.
But even then, it's a looser tie-in than this is, because we've seen Clown Hunter terrorizing Joker, basically, or his forces at least.
And I think the big thing that makes this feel like more of a tie-in to me, apart from just the character inclusion, is that this is what the city's like right now because of Joker War. So this actually has value beyond just Clown Hunter himself, is to see just how much of a messed up place the city is as a whole, or the Narrows at least is, because of Joker War. So it adds a bit of context for even just the main story, get into the big finale, show 100. So, no. Honestly, this might... Where do I rank this in terms of the stories in the book? I mean, obviously from a personal point of view, I love the Cass and Steph thing, and this might be overall my favourite story in the book, though. So Matt's reaction when I said I like this more than the Ivy one was quite funny to me. But
well, yeah, because
I don't think it surprised me that you liked it more than the Ivy one. And I don't think I would blame anyone for liking it more, given that it is a more complete story.
Yeah. I just don't like Clown Hunter, and I don't like this art that much. Like, it's just not my thing.
Like, oh man.
Jim Stoker's great.
Yeah,
Stoker's
cartoony.
His alien mini was phenomenal.
That was something special.
Yeah, this is wonderful stuff. But that is the final story in the book. So I guess we're at the point where we can rate the book as a whole. I think this is a pretty good collection, mostly of prologues to things that are coming up in the Bat family in 2021. How you judge that as a sort of satisfying book to buy, even just compared to, say, the tie-in issue we just had, although that wasn't an anthology book, I suppose, but some of the earlier ones were. I don't know. That's a hard thing to judge. I guess you just have to go with your gut instinct. So Matt, what are you giving Warzone out of 10?
There's certain stories that I'd want to give higher. I mean, it's pretty good. I'll give this a 7.5. But because I like the Bane story, but the art was But I really like the Batgirl's story, and of course I like the Ivy one. But it's kind of, it's the Gillum March art. There we go. But yeah.
All right, Connor?
I'm going to give it a 6.5. I think it's, like, none of the stories are bad. Some of them are pretty good. But ultimately, I felt a little bit underwhelmed, dissatisfied, I guess. That I didn't get enough of a story out of the issue. It was very much just teasers and setups, and for the most part. And while some of those were enjoyable enough, I didn't really get enough out of this for what it was to be a quote-unquote good issue, which is kind of the benchmark for the 7 for me.
Yeah, it's a weird one to rate because of what it is, but I think I'll judge it slightly differently in the sense that it's more kind of a collection of trailers for stuff coming up later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as that, it's pretty good.
It's kind of weird though that you have to pay for all your trailers, isn't it?
Yeah, I know you're going to pick a part of that, but I still think this is more valid than, like, I don't think it should have been a collection of free different free stories that they give out, like free comic book day stuff. I think this is fine to charge for this. This there's nothing wrong with that. I probably give it an 8. I think I really love what the story does with Bane, even though the art's not very good. I love the Batgirl stuff, obviously. I love the last story. I think the Ridley setup is good, with really good art, even if it wasn't as satisfying on its own. The only one I didn't like was the Ivy one. I didn't get anything from that story whatsoever. I basically was just kind of reading it without barely taking any information in for 8 pages because it meant nothing to me.
I feel Matt's rage.
There's just so much green and so much vines, on pages.
Yeah, that's Flo Braga art, so it's fine. Like, her Ivy's great.
Yep.
Oh dear. Which is funny because typically when it's Swamp Thing, I'm okay with it. Something about Ivy's version of the greenery.
Because you hate gingers. We all know this. It's fine.
I don't hate ginger. I love Babs. We've been talking about Babs like repeatedly in this.
You like Babs. You don't like gingers. It's different.
But I love MJ from Spider-Man. I love Wally West.
Anyways.
Plenty of gingers that I love. Not Connor, obviously,
Connor?
but plenty of gingers.
Yeah.